Hi, I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. With us, a guest we've had on a couple of times. I just can't get enough of him because he has great inside information. I'm kind of giving it away. He wrote this book back in 2012. Kevin Shipp, he's a former CIA intelligence officer with the highest clearance you can get. He blew the whistle on some of the misdeeds of the CIA. His life has been threatened and turned upside down because of this. A few of the bad guys in the intelligence community like him very much, but there's still plenty of good guys in the intel community. Kevin Shipp, thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Good to see you again, Greg. Thanks for having me.
This past Friday, this press conference with these former CIA and intelligence officers and law enforcement people, you get a historic press conference. Tell us about what happened last Friday.
Yes, Greg, this is very historic in that we've got former high-level federal agents from the CIA, the NSA, the FBI, DOJ, and even some former federal prosecutors. We all came out last Friday and did a press conference demanding that Attorney General Sessions refer several people in the FBI leadership, for example, for criminal indictment for the illegal NSA surveillance on Trump campaign and transition team, and some other felonies that were committed.
You demanded that he get on the case and start prosecuting these people.
That's correct.
How big of a constitutional crisis, or how big of a problem do we have? I mean, America thinks they're just chugging along and everything's kind of running as usual, but we have a big problem in our government with the attempt to unseat a duly elected president that's ongoing. Please describe how big of a problem you think this is.
Yes, Greg, this is without question a constitutional crisis. We have a coup within our government at the senior levels of the CIA, the DOJ, and the FBI. At this point, attempting to unseat a duly elected president who is elected by the American people and remove him from office. This is at best collusion between the CIA and the FBI, and at worst, a conspiracy, perhaps even treason, on the part of senior officials in the shadow government, deep state, whatever you want to call it, to attack Donald Trump and remove him from office.
These people, this is unparalleled in the history of the country, is it? I mean, it makes Watergate look kind of stupid.
Well, yes, it makes Watergate look like a Sunday school class. Here we have high-level members of our intelligence community and our law enforcement community actually conspiring and colluding to obstruct justice, lying under oath, filing false affidavits for illegal NSA surveillance. And we know it's been at least 260 names that have been unmasked. This is a coup within the shadow government, the intelligence agency, the deep state, as some would call it, against the president. We have not seen anything like this since the presidency of John F. Kennedy, when CIA Director Allen Dulles attacked him, and we saw what happened there. And I'm probably maybe one of the only former CIA officers that will come out and say this. But there's crystal clear evidence that the CIA was directly involved, at least in the cover-up of the JFK assassination. Now we have the same thing happening again, where an elected president has run across the intelligence community. And if you remember what Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said on an interview, put it this way, it's chilling. If you cross the intelligence community, the intelligence community, have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. What a chilling statement. And that's what we're seeing now. Essentially, it's collusion, a coup between the CIA, the FBI, and other senior officials now with Robert Mueller to try to unseat an elected president.
And it's ongoing with this, Cohen raid on his office where there's no
Yes.
attorney-client privilege. It's ongoing.
Yes.
These people are fighting back, right?
Oh, yes. And the Cohen raid has serious constitutional issues in that. Within that raid, they scooped up attorney-client privileged information between Cohen and Trump, and they claim, we have a process where we'll look at it internally. No, the fact is the FBI has already taken charge of this attorney-client privileged information. It's already in their possession, and based on their past experience of lying under oath and fabricating affidavits, are we supposed to trust them now? So that's very serious.
Are they afraid of Donald Trump? I mean, he's doing some good. If they're afraid of him, he must be doing some good.
I think they are. And again, getting back to JFK, Donald Trump has made it clear that he was going to drain the swamp. The people that elected him for office expect him to do that. the CIA and specifically the FBI have been engaged in this kind of treasonous behavior for a couple of decades now, obstructing justice. And we saw that in the Hillary Clinton server so-called investigation. So they have a lot of things to hide and a lot of skeletons in the closet. They are terrified that Donald Trump is going to look into those things and that there's an investigation going to be done. So they are trying everything they can to destroy his character or worse. So that doesn't happen, because if it does, their felonies will be exposed.
Do you think that he's going to expose their felonies? Is he in control? I mean, a lot of people are worried that Donald Trump's not in control, that the bad guys are going to win, and you have a unique position here. Where are we? How is this battle going?
Well, Donald Trump is, I think, the man to do this simply because of his personality. He's independent. He's not financially tied to any of these people. He's known as a maverick, and that is exactly what we need right now to lead against this deep state shadow government swamp, as some call it. It is so embedded that President Trump is surrounded by members of the shadow government, some of which are lying to him, others of which we've seen have leaked classified information to the press. So he is surrounded by this apparatus that has been in place for over 20 years. So we can't expect him to clean this house up overnight. He is in a war for his life and his entire career right now. What he needs is our support, because there's one man against this entire essentially wicked cabal. Is almost a David and Goliath kind of thing.
They have come out, the Congress has come out and basically made a decision and said there's no collusion. There's no collusion with Donald Trump. But that's not the case with former intelligence officials. Shockingly, these people did collude with the Russians. Can you talk about that, and about Brennan and the CIA and the stupid dossier and the Russian involvement on the Democrat and deep state side?
Yes, and I think one of the reasons they're attacking Trump and accusing him of collusion, because they know darn well that's exactly what they did. And they're trying to keep the focus off their collusion with the Russians by attacking. It's the old propaganda trick where you blame your enemy for what you're doing. Well, that's exactly what they're doing. And with this so-called dossier, which is a fancy name they put on it, they make it sound legitimate, stack of papers of false information. What the press is not reporting is that Hillary Clinton, through the DNC, essentially laundered money through their law firm, paid a former, if he is former, British MI6 officer. And here's the important point. Christopher Steele went out and gathered this information from Russian intelligence officials. Let's just let that hang there for a second, and I'll say it again. The dossier information against Trump came from Russian intelligence officials. And they want to talk about collusion. That's why they're screaming collusion, because they know that's exactly what they did to try to destroy Donald Trump. It backfired. It's now in the public now, and they are trying to remove him from office to cover the serious treasonous things that they engaged in.
There had to be a reason for this, and I don't know this. This is just what I suspect, but you are an insider, and I suspect that the Clinton Foundation, Charles Ortel says, well, on paper it's $2 billion. He says, but it could be $100 billion. It could be $200 billion. It could be huge. Is the Clinton Foundation the reason why this global charity fraud? They collected money for the Haitians for an earthquake, and they never gave it to them. They gave $3 or $4 billion. Nobody in Washington said anything. How could you have a fraud that big unless there are people on both sides of the aisle in on it? Is this the reason why all these people, whether it's Obama or whether it's Valerie Jarrett or Powell or Powers, Samantha Powers, or McCabe, Strzok, Comey, Mueller, all these people, are all these people connected in some way, shape, or form? Brennan, Clapper, are they in some way, shape, or form connected to the Clinton Fraud Foundation, the global charity fraud that we call the Clinton Foundation?
Oh, I think it is. I think it's the biggest unprosecuted charity fraud, international charity fraud in history. There are multiple felonies in several countries and within the United States there. And the FBI actually conducted a so-called investigation on the Clinton Foundation, ignored some serious felonies, contribution to $59.1 million into a mysterious post office box. And ironically, the three people that covered up the Clinton Foundation's felonies were, guess who? James Comey, Robert Mueller, and Loretta Lynch. And we can see, just looking back through history, that James Comey has been essentially a Hillary Clinton fixer, going all the way back to him sitting on the Whitewater Committee. And let me mention here, too, that Mr. Comey was tied directly into the HSBC Bank money laundering felony, where HSBC was laundering drug money from drug cartels from Central and South America. And James Comey sat on the board of directors and obviously was aware this was going on. Robert Mueller did the investigation on that, Loretta Lynch, and where Mr. Comey should have been prosecuted and gone to jail, it was Robert Mueller who kept that from happening and covered for his best friend, James Comey. No one was charged. HSBC wasn't charged. They were just levied with a fine, which was nothing for them, which they paid, and they just walked off scot-free.
We're in the danger zone here. Our constitutional republic is up for grabs. These guys are not relenting. They're still fighting. We're in the middle of the fight. Is that right? Tell us how big this is and how big the fight is and how serious it is.
This fight is huge. This is a fight for the existence of our Constitution, which has been circumvented by senior officials who have committed multiple felonies and multiple violations of Title USC laws. Senior officials in the CIA and the FBI, they have thumbed their nose at the Constitution, abused their powers, broken the law multiple times, and it's ironic that the majority of these cases go back to protecting Hillary Rodham Clinton since she started as First Lady with a clearance she should not have had into the secret side of our government. She and her husband have weaved an international criminal organization that stretches around the globe and within the United States. Several of these people are connected to that, either financially. George Soros is connected to that. George Soros has contributed into the campaigns of several congressmen and senators, including Republicans. So this essentially is a global international criminal cabal that has penetrated into our government and now has senior level governments colluding, and I would argue conspiring, a conspiracy to unseat a duly elected sitting president.
Are these people going to go to jail? I mean, we had this press, which the press is ridiculous, and I'm ashamed I ever say I even worked at CNN, although they weren't that way when I worked there. But, we have these criminal referrals from Congress, which I've never seen before in all my time doing on either side of the aisle. I know there's people that they'll say they're from Republicans, but criminal referrals for Comey, his number two, McCabe, Loretta Lynch, a former attorney general, and also a former presidential candidate and former first lady and former secretary of state. They laid out criminal indictments and charges against these people, and the press didn't do anything about it. They didn't even covered it. A, is the press corrupt? B, are these people going to ultimately be served, and we're going to have some justice?
Well, along with JTF MAGA, which is a historic group we just formed of former federal agents, CIA, NSA, FBI, and some former prosecutors, in the press conference we did last week, we actually brought out the Title 18 USC felonious violations these people have committed, and recommend that Attorney General Sessions turn them over for criminal referral. So, yes, there have been several felonies committed by these people. The press, there was a memo put out by 11 congressmen citing these direct violations, criminal violations of the U.S. Code, and the mainstream media ignored it. Now, remember, the mainstream media is plugged into Media Matters, George Soros. Media Matters funds a lot of media things. There are editors in the media that have been connected to the CIA for a couple decades now. The media is essentially in collusion with these other major players in our government to cover this information up, not cover it at all, or continue to parrot this collusion narrative, which has been completely disproven. So they're either ignorant or they're complicit. We all know they're not ignorant. So they're complicit in essentially a coup that's happening against the sitting president.
Wow, that's a strong statement. The media is complicit in a coup because
Yes.
They're not reporting the facts.
That's right.
Is the Clinton Foundation? So you think the Clinton Foundation is the reason why all these people lined up to commit felonies? They're all being paid off.
I think they're either financially connected. Remember, because of his relationship with Hillary Clinton, he was recommended to sit on the board of Lockheed Martin, which was a major Clinton Foundation donor. And while James Comey sat on the board of Lockheed Martin because of his Hillary connections, he made $6 million in 1 year. So these people are financially connected to Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation global criminal cabal. They're either financially connected, or there is perhaps some blackmail going on with connections that they have had in the past. And I think there are many people out there that are afraid to cross the Clinton Foundation because they're afraid of what will happen to them. So this is an international dark network that is connected and penetrates all the way to the top levels of our government.
Are people going to roll over? I mean, this isn't like the Gambino crime family where they, will do 5 to 10 years for somebody and not say a word. These are not hardened criminals that you'd find in in organized crime, although it seems to be organized crime. Are some of these people going to roll over? I've already seen Comey, basically rolling over on Loretta Lynch, and I think a lot of these people are just pure weasels. There's no honor among them, as they are thieves, and they're going to roll over. Do you think they're going to be either being pressured to roll over or will roll over?
I think the DOJ and the FBI officials, because of their retirement and their career and their pensions, they will protect that at all costs. So yes, I think they will roll over on each other. Some of the other congressmen and senators and others who've been involved, they're so deeply tied. I think some of them, if they roll over, are terrified that they will be criminally prosecuted themselves. So we may not see that. But yes, within the FBI, I think they're going to roll over on each other just to protect themselves.
Do you think Mark Taylor brought this out? He wrote the Trump prophecies, and he says, this is going to be military tribunal. It's massive. What's going on is massive. This isn't small. And he says, and Donald Trump has to be careful that he doesn't take down parts of government. Could parts of government be taken down in this ongoing fight?
Yes, it could. I mean, it's a serious constitutional crisis involving high levels of the CIA. John Brennan, of course, we know, broke into Senate computers, which is a felony. We're seeing high members of our government that have committed violations, felonies, in some cases treason. If these people are arrested and they are charged, they will go to prison at the highest levels of our government, and even perhaps in the Congress and the Senate, which would cause a constitutional crisis and destabilize our government. Many of us think that President Trump is taking this slowly and cautiously, because if they were to act too fast, we would indeed have a serious constitutional crisis, and there would be charges against high-level officials.
Some of the people, I think you said this in the pre-interview, you think John McCain is up to his neck in treason.
Yes. I do. It was John McCain who sent an emissary to meet with Christopher Steele, pick up and courier back this false dossier information. It was John McCain who disseminated that information intentionally to John Brennan, director of the CIA, to James Comey and McCabe in the FBI. It was McCain who was directly involved in that information being brought back and then disseminated to the CIA and FBI. So he was right in there and a direct participant in this collusion, perhaps conspiracy.
I mean, this has to go all the way to the top. This has to go all the way to Obama.
Yeah, yes, it does. And important, that's a good point, Greg, because, of course, Obama will deny that. With the Russian dossier, contained within that dossier is NSA surveillance of a presidential campaign and transition team. Now, any action by the intelligence community, especially FISA court warrants for NSA surveillance, those go in what I used to be involved in called the Presidential Daily Brief. That comes from the intelligence community every single day, and by law has to go to the president. The president reviews it. Within the Presidential Daily Brief, by law, would have to be the fact that they were conducting NSA surveillance on the Trump campaign team. So Obama received that Presidential Daily Brief. Obama read that Presidential Daily Brief. Obama knew exactly what was happening.
I mean, the end game here you're describing, just so people understand this, and I think people are having a hard time with this. We have an ongoing overthrow of America by these same people right now. Is that what you're saying?
That is exactly what I'm saying. There is essentially a civil war, sadly, involving upper parts of our government that's occurring in the United States right now. It's split in two, almost between the dark side and the constitutional side. There's never been anything like this in history. It is extremely serious. This is an extremely serious hour for our government, and especially for our constitutional freedoms.
What do people need to do? I know you have a couple of groups out there. I know Soros and Media Matters and all that. Incidentally, Don't you think Soros should just be arrested for sedition or in treason or both?
Oh, absolutely. And there are some countries out there that have issued warrants for him for violating their own elections and even their financial systems. Without a question, the man is an international criminal. And of course, very close to Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. But Soros is an international criminal, and you bet there should be warrants out for him. He's trying to erase and destroy U.S. sovereignty, for starters.
The election fraud. One of the things that I wanted to ask you about, and you probably know, so Trump had this election integrity commission, and a lot of pushback from multiple states, California, New York, and other states like that. Huge electoral college vote states. Is the election fraud and election, voter fraud and election fraud finally going to be addressed by Homeland Security? Are they going to crack down on that? Are they going to stop that? Because it seems like Cuomo's now allowing 35,000 convicted felons to vote now in New York. It seems like they're trying to make what is illegal legal. Are they going to finally crack down on the voter and election fraud?
No, they won't. If you remember, I think it was the Department of Homeland Security was caught hacking into the Georgia voter election system. No, they will not. Last Friday I did.
That's too bad.
I did a press conference, as we talked about last Friday, with a new organization called America Restored. And they're at americarestored.org, and they are actually examining the voter fraud issue, investigating it, and they'll be putting out some statements of fact where the voter fraud was, the machines involved, who was connected to it. They're doing that study right now. It has to be done by the people with credibility and with experts on board, which they have, because the government will not do it. I can guarantee you that. They don't want to risk their careers. They know that they've hacked into some of these systems themselves. So it's up to organizations like America Restored and others to do it, and it has to be done.
What kind of a world do they want us to live in? A one world government, a new world order, communism? What is it that what's the end game for these weasels trying to take over America? What is the end game?
I'm sorry. People need to understand that the Democratic Party today is not the Democratic Party of John F. Kennedy. The Democratic Party today with Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton is more Marxist than anything else. They think the Constitution should be a quote-unquote progressive document. In other words, it's outdated and should be redone. They're connected directly into George Soros, who wants to destroy the U.S., the sovereignty of the U.S. government. They're diametrically opposed to the cultural traditions in this country. So the Democratic Party now is made up of Marxists, leftists that have penetrated that entire organization and are now involved in criminal felonies like this dossier, because their goal and sole end is to completely change our form of government and our sovereignty. It's no longer the Democratic Party it used to be.
What do people need to do? You mentioned a couple of websites and a couple organizations. We're trying to, the conservatives, the people that are we the people, that are people believe in the Constitution, need to be organized like Media Matters and George Soros pouring all this money in. Is that right? Tell me about that.
That's correct. And of course, I get nothing personal out of this, but I just believe in their mission. America Restored has come out, and I think they've nailed it right on the head, in that these far left dark organizations, they're huge organizations, and they have billions in funding by people like George Soros. America Restored has come up with a program called A Latte for Your Country. You contribute, any American can contribute to America Restored the amount that they pay for a cup of coffee once a week or once a month. And America Restored is bringing Americans together. Typically, the left has big funded organizations. The conservatives usually are individuals. Well, America Restored is bringing them all together, bringing the funding all together, so that the conservatives in America, the constitutionalists, can have that kind of well-funded organization to fight back against this takeover of our constitutional form of government.
And then what about your MAGA people, your group?
Yes. JTF MAGA, and I think it's jtfmaga.com. JTF MAGA, it is historic in that they've brought former federal agents, myself, the CIA, NSA, FBI. They have some former federal prosecutors. We've all come together and said enough is enough. This is an attempted coup within the intelligence and law enforcement branches of our government. The press conference we held last Friday, all of us with JTF MAGA came out, and we are demanding that Attorney General Sessions refer some of these people we've talked about for criminal prosecution. So that is huge. No group of federal agents have ever come before like this publicly in history to demand these things. And it's a remarkable group, and I think it's going to make a huge impact on this.
Tell me the good guys win.
The good guys, We the people will win. If we the people will take this message that your program is putting out there, if they'll take the message of America Restored, JTF MAGA, the millions of people that engage in this political revolution that put Donald Trump in there to overturn the shadow government and deep state, they are the answer. The American people are the hope. They rise up, they band together, they band their finances together, and they stand up. You bet there's hope. We do that, and we can win, and we can beat down this coup that's happening in our government. We have to do it, and we have to do it now.
ForTheLoveOfFreedom.net is the website. This is the book. You can find it on there. It's a wonderful publication that you risked your neck for, and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, in trying to get this published, and you did. You'll send me the links for ForTheLoveOfFreedom.net, your website. I'll put that on there also, your your MAGA links, and also America Restored. Just send me all the links. I'll put them all up. Kevin Shipp, thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Always good to be with you.